Hello, welcome to Black Women North of 50. I'm Wynn Hunt, your host, and driving, so I'm not trying to look at you too much. Tell by my do-rag that I'm either going to the gym or going to get my hair done, which is what I'm doing. So we're going to be talking about hair today. Our hair, Black women's hair. We're going to talk about Black women's hair the way it was back in the day, the kinds of things that we did with our hair then and what we're doing now and what it was like coming up. Black hair in the white community. I hope you'll stay with me. We're going to talk to Roni Jones. She's a professional stylist in Pasadena. And it should be a good time. We'll see. I feel very vulnerable with no makeup on and hair all crazy underneath this rag. Let's see what happens. Stay with me. Absolutely. As promised, I'm here with Roni Jones, hair extraordinaire, out here in Pasadena. Roni, tell me a little bit about how you got started in the business.
So I am a curly hair specialist. I do all curls. I focus on tight curls. I've been doing hair about 30 years. I've been specializing in tight curls for about, I'd say since 2009. I started doing strictly curls probably around 2015, 2016. I kind of fell into it. Started wearing my hair natural after going through a bout with cancer. I was just lazy and didn't feel like doing my own hair.
Oh, no.
And then people started stopping me on the street and they were like, "Hey, how'd you get your hair like that?" And I was like, "What? You want to wear your hair like this?" So I just invited them to come in and, we try some things out. And then after a while, I got really good at it. I just figured some things out. And this is before there were products that they have on the... Yeah, they didn't have these products yet. And so I had not knowingly had figured out like the water soluble thing and, how that affects the hair and how it affects styling. And so then it turned into there's this woman and she knows how to do this. And I just started getting people coming in from all over the place.
Listen, being in California, in Los Angeles area, I have stopped people on the street because I don't know what hair. Yes. Of course, people I stop like, "Oh, I do my own hair." Oh, God. Good for you.
I know. Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people will think that natural hair is do-it-yourself hair. And it doesn't have to be, especially if you're struggling, if you're having some issues, if, you're not sure, like, what's going on or what's going on with my hair. A lot of people don't know their own hair. I started doing hair back when we still had the Marcel irons, pressing combs, even before flat irons existed.
Oh, wow.
Before the electric flat irons. I've been doing hair that long.
Oh, that's great.
So I was doing hair before flat irons were created, before electric flat irons were created. So yeah, so all of that knowledge I actually put into what I do and my approach to hair overall.
You're working on my kitchen there. And it reminds me of being a little girl sitting in the living room between my mom's legs. My father's watching television and I'm screaming because it hurts bad. And my father called that the ooch ouch hour.
My experience getting my hair done, I never had bad experiences.
Oh, good for you.
So I didn't start learning about these experiences that women were having as children until I started doing hair.
Well, that makes sense.
I was very surprised, but it changed the way that I do hair, the compassion that I try to have, and the understanding that I try to have. And my mom, she wasn't a hair person, and I found out much later in life that she was one of those kids who didn't have good experiences. She and her sister had lots and lots of hair. And, they had that day where they got their hair pressed and there was a lot of burning and things going on.
Yep.
And so my mom, she came up in the hippie 60s Black Panther era. And so she was very much into your natural hair is beautiful. She grew up mostly here in California. And so I really think that was her excuse to not have to press my hair. But she would drop me at the salon though. And Yeah, and so we had a routine. I mean, she would wash it. She was very kind and very gentle. And, she'd lay me at the sink and she'd give me a little towel to put on my face. And she'd be like, okay, I'm going to pour this over to rinse your hair. And I'm like, okay. it wasn't a terrible experience for me at all. She made it very pleasant. And I think it was because she had such a bad experience. She wanted to make sure that it was much easier for me.
Mom was so nervous about, what are we talking? I was maybe 6 or 7 years old. And we lived in an all-white neighborhood. I think my sister and I were the only Black kids in our school. And we wanted to have bangs. Oh, gosh darn it. And back then, there was one kind of permanent, I can't remember what they called it back then, but she tried it and just was so upset because she was afraid that she was going to, burn our hair up because she didn't know how, because she's never done it before. So I never had a relaxer until I got older. And then in my first year in college, I had my hair in a really cute short afro, really cute. And I went over to the place, it was right across the street from campus. And I knew the woman and she wasn't there, but there was somebody else there. So she said, oh yeah, I can do it. Let me tell you something. She would pull the hair, then cut it, pull it, cut it, pull it, cut it. I looked like somebody who had just come out of a grooming show. It was awful. I wore hats for about a year.
It was like a little poodle cut
with holes.
Oh, yeah. As soon as you said that, I was like, I see holes.
Yeah, I had to wear hats. It was horrible and traumatizing.
Yeah, I started, in high school was when I really started, playing with my hair myself. And my mother, again, she was not a hair person. She was like, by all means, do whatever you want to do. I did all kinds of crazy things to my hair at the time. And so I had friends, we all were experimenting with our hair, and we were using Sun-In and, all kinds of things. And by the time I took my senior pictures, I barely had hair. But my mother was one of those, find yourself, do your thing, find out who you are with your hair. And so it never bothered me. It was never like a big issue. But I did start off with quite a bit of hair and ended up with not a lot of hair. But I realized that that wasn't my thing, meaning that, I just wasn't into, got to have my hair like long and looking this way. And so my senior year after I graduated from high school, I cut it all off.
Oh, look at you.
Into a little short afro, which no one was really doing.
No.
At the time, it wasn't a look. But my friends were no one was surprised because I was an experimenter. I did things. And so, there wasn't a lot of like, oh my God. It was just like, of course, Roni would do something like that.
For me, I was copying off my mom, and my mom and dad were very into the civil rights movement, women's movement. And, she was, it was what I grew up with, civil rights and women's movement. And so I wanted to have my hair like hers. And then I got a poodle cut. It was bad.
I know the time it takes to grow out of a bad haircut.
Oh my gosh. Yes, exactly. And when you were a little girl, you're saying that your mom did your hair when you were real little, or?
Well, she did it up to a point. She would wash it. She didn't even blow dry it. She just washed it and she would put it in little plaits, like 3 or 4 plaits, and that was my look. Yep. Then she started dropping me off. She wouldn't even walk in with me. She just lived down the curve. Like, I'll see you in a couple hours, baby. And go in, and they didn't like press it or anything. They would wash it, and maybe sometimes they press it, but they just put it in little plaits or ponytails, and that was that.
Yeah, I wore braids for a long time. And I remember in the 7th grade, because at that point I was in 7th grade, I went to a new school because my parents moved for a year to Massachusetts. There were no Blacks in my mom's family. And one day I remember being in school and this guy sitting behind me. All I remember is him saying, feels like Brillo pads, and the rest of the class laughing. It was mortifying. But that's kind of what we go through as Black women, people not understanding our hair, and how important it is through the generations.
My whole life, my mom was like, your hair is beautiful. You don't need to do anything to it. And so, of course, I believed my mother. And she said my hair was beautiful. When I started high school, I go to school with this big, giant, crazy looking hair. And back then, the look was long and sleek and, weaves and things didn't exist back then,
Right.
And oh my God, they talked about me. So I walked home crying and I would not go back to school until I got my hair straightened. Of course, after it was all straightened out, no one could believe it. But, of course it was mine because the weaves didn't exist back then.
Right.
But I never felt like myself. And I really think that's why I spent so much time in my high school years trying to figure out a hairstyle because it never felt like me.
I did it.
And it's hard to find someone who can help you figure it out or explain to you, this is your hair, this is what it does, this is why it does this.
Yes, exactly.
And knowing those things really help when it comes to styling or accepting.
Yeah.
Or understanding like, oh, okay, this is why I can't get this and this is why this won't work.
Did your mom ever talk about her experience coming up with hair?
Never.
Is that right?
My mother, she rarely talked about it. You know how I found out when I started doing hair? That's when I found out she had bad experiences with her hair. So it was never a topic of discussion. There were no bad experiences. But she never talked about how awful it was for her to get her hair done or just that, the day you get your hair done kind of a thing. It just wasn't a thing.
I remember sitting in my grandmother's kitchen and she put the hot comb on the stove, right? And then would run it through her hair.
Yes. Yes. We did have, as I got older, there was a pressing comb, in the house. And once in a while, she'd do it for me every now and then, but not really. If I was if I asked her, Mom, would you do my hair? She'd say no. It came out of her mouth so easy. No.
I'm just going to stop right there and say, oh my God, I'm on camera looking like this. Now, I know it's going to be gorgeous at the end, but just saying. Okay.
The process, moving on. Right?
It really is.
People a little taste of the process.
Because you will see, just so you know, what the end product is going to be wonderful. I just have to say that because I'm looking a little bit like a clown right now. I was talking earlier about how things were in the early 20th century and how at the beginning of the great migration of Black folks up north, people did not want to look like they were from the country for a lot of reasons. One was because they weren't able to get a job.
Yes.
And you had to look more white. Period.
Yes. And there was this the class distinction also. If you looked a certain way, you dressed a certain way.
Yeah.
Your hair looked a certain way, then you were connected with being country.
Yeah. And if you're not, you're from the city. You have more status kind of thing. Yeah, I think it's so fascinating to me where we came from. About how women in Africa, and maybe here, would braid their hair with seeds.
Oh, yeah.
And rice.
Yes.
So that if they get captured or have to escape, they have something to eat?
Yeah. Now, the stories that I've read were, yes, they would plant their food. They would put seeds and things in their hair. They also, the intricate designs were also maps.
Yes.
Yes.
The things they went through. Oh.
Yeah, they would bring their food here and were the seeds and, plant their seeds. Eat their food.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was.
I was happy about doing this interview. I'm like, I've always wanted to look up what's happening with Black women's hair and how it was a thing. And I don't know if it's a thing more so with our culture than other cultures. Doesn't really matter. It's just, I know that hair has been something that we concentrate on a lot.
It is. I mean, there's power in it. There's an expression of who we are, of how we want people to see us. It's why I ask people when they come in, how do you want to be seen in the world? What do you want people to see when you go out in the world and how do you want to feel? Because that's all connected to your hair, your styling. That's why I feel like it's very important to understand your hair and come to a place where you can love it enough to be proud of it. Because that's all people want. Everybody they want to feel pretty.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
They want to feel accepted. And they want to love their hair.
Yeah. I was talking, I just met up with a friend from high school just recently. She came out to California because her daughter is out here. And my friend is biracial. She's half Black, half white. And I remember in high school that it was a thing. It's very difficult to be biracial when everybody wants you to be one or the other. White, you're too black. And I've actually experienced that too. You're not dark enough to know how to be a black person.
Yeah, too light for the black people, too black for the white people.
It's the, kind of thing.
Yes.
We're on the playground. Debbie was blonde, blue, a cute little girl. And she called me the N-word. She said, "You're a..." Like, no, I'm not. And I just didn't want to be different. I don't know that I knew what that was. I knew it was a bad word. Wherever you at, Debbie, shame on you.
I have something worse, but I won't say it.
Okay.
I never had an experience like that until I went to places like Mississippi. But just, I don't know. I can't say that my mother, there were certain things we weren't allowed to say, but we were exposed to everything. But I'd never heard words like that. Well, the N-word I'd heard often. But coon, I remember spending a summer in Mississippi on my granddad's farm. And this man, we stopped into this little store. The man who owned the store, white man, had just had all these names for us that I didn't know were terrible names. And I remember talking to my mom later that night on the phone, and I was like, "What's a coon?" And she was like, "What could you that word?" And she was very upset.
I'll bet.
And that's when I started really paying attention.
Sure.
And you start paying attention to the way people, it just all started coming together. The way people would treat you, some of the things that they would say to you, they mean one thing, but it would be very, very underhanded.
Yeah.
And so you become very sensitive to those things.
Do you find that women who are north of 50 want our hair to be a particular way, or is it just everybody wants different stuff?
It's different. I get a lot of older women, and they run the gamut. They either want it short and easy to manage, or they're very excited about how natural hair is accepted now, and they're ready to explore. They want to try the things, and they want to see what their hair can do, or try to grow it out really long, or get really cute little funky styles, play with color.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. It's like they kind of had this, they were held back. They were forced to wear their hair a certain way. And they're like, now that I can. And it's always the same conversation. It's like, I just love how these young kids are really embracing their hair. And it's like, it's given them permission to do the same thing.
Yeah. That's so good.
I do. I'd love to see that.
I'd love to see women our age that are exploring. While we're pausing here, Roni's going to do some edging. Love the zhuzh. Oh, that's such a good cut. You gotta love product. I was at the dentist, and there was a white man in there. And he's like, "Is that your natural hair?" I said, "Yes, and product." And he looked at me and said, "What kind of product?" Buddy.
We've come a long way, though, with the questions about our hair.
Yeah,
I mean, I remember when I'd be in the grocery store, and I just would feel. And I'd have to turn around I can feel that. I can feel you touching my hair. Please don't touch my hair. Or people would they just would come up to you and just put their hands in and I'd have to grab their hand hey, that's not okay.
What am I, a horse?
Right.
Not loud?
Yeah, but we've come a long way from that.
That's true. Now people ask.
Yes. Or they just say, "I like your hair." But I have found that when someone white or other than black compliments my hair and then asks me what I put in it, usually what comes next is they have a niece or a nephew or a grand that is half black.
I don't know what to do with your hair.
Exactly. Or, my daughter, she just doesn't know what to do. We're trying to figure it out. That's pretty much the conversations that happen now.
Yeah.
People are always. They're so funny, too. They're just like, "I like your hair." And they just kind of stand there and smile. And I'm just like, 3, 2, 1.
Yep. That's exactly right.
Yeah. It's a little creepy.
and except it's coming.
But I know, yes.
Right?
It's only because I know it's coming.
Yeah. I wonder about it. Was talking about how we're getting to be very homogeneous. I wonder what it's like for kids and young people who are half Black, half white, or mixed in some way. Do they get the same "can I touch your hair" thing going on?
I wonder. That's so funny because my first cousins are, and it's a conversation that we've never had.
Which is why I'm doing this, because it's not something that we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know it.
Yes. We've all lived it. We've all been questioned about it.
Yep. And I can't be the only one. Well, you just proved it. I'm not the only one thinking about it. So.
No. I even get a lot of kids also who are biracial. It's very different for them. So I've had kids where, they've had problems in school where kids, they're like, what are you? Or the other kids decide what they are. They have a hard time. Oh my gosh, I've had kids just come in and just break down in tears, because they're living in this environment where the people in the home don't know what to do with their hair, and they've been putting all these things in it and doing all these things that are making it worse. And then they go to school and they get ridiculed by kids. Some of it is jealousy. Some of it is,
Ignorance.
They don't know. Yes, it's ignorance. And these poor kids, they just don't know what to do with this beautiful head of hair that they have. Then there are some kids that are like, just cut it all off. They've just had some experiences with a parent who just doesn't know how to do their hair. Everyone doesn't really know how to do their kids' hair. That becomes very clear once they come to a professional and start learning a few things like, oh, I just never knew, what to do. Then you kind of learn some new things, and it all changes. But I have seen kids like really go, and then I've had some that don't really care. They're like, whatever.
Yeah.
And their parents are like, the parents are either, we want to keep the length and the hair is just a mess, but what can you do? And it's part of the problem. They grow up not liking their hair or having, some serious hangups about their hair.
Yeah.
Then you have some parents that are like, do what you want to do, babe. Little kids will come in with really long hair and they're like, I want to cut up to here. And they'll have pictures and everything. They're so cute. So yeah, I don't even know. I would say the parents do play a big role in how they feel about their hair based on what they don't know or what they feel that they want for their kids.
Yeah.
I don't have an opinion on, how that should work. But I do think that the biggest thing that happens is their experience between home and school affects them as an adult.
Now I have wonderful hair. Well, some on my face will smell good, even though I'm just going to go home. Just want to ask Roni Jones some closing remarks about hair for Black women north 50.
I think the most important thing to understand is that the possibilities are endless. You can do whatever you want. There's so many things that are acceptable now. So a lot of the big worries with older women are thinning hair, balding, but you can find a style that works for you, that makes you feel beautiful and powerful, and, just be willing to go through the journey and find someone to work with. You don't have to do it yourself.
You really don't. And she's wonderful. Just so you know, as she said earlier, she works with curly hair and she's great. Thank you for joining me. Remember, keep creating some joy for yourself. Embrace and learn and be curious. And please find something funny every day. We need it bad. See you next time.